What's next? Who else? Another Venezuela or Colombia, Nicaragua, Cuba, another Vietnam, Afghanistan, maybe Iraq? Why did Trump seize the Venezuelan tanker? What will happen to the oil? How will China react to this? Where was the refined oil supposedly headed? What does Iran have to do with this? And finally, did the United States get the right? Does the United States have the right to attack someone else's property? Or is that how real men act? A guy sees something, wants it, and takes it, like highway robbery. That's what it looks like. And how is Venezuela similar to Somalia, and why will the lesson of Somalia cost Venezuela, Colombia, and to be honest, even Mexico dearly? All of this, ladies and gentlemen, is coming up today, right now. We need to get answers to the previously asked and other questions, because basically we need to understand whether World War III is brewing in the Caribbean basin. In another 2 or 3 years, the power of the American army will increase so much that no one on the planet will even be able to dream of victory. Are China and Russia negotiating about an attempt to rein in the out-of-control America? Well, because Europe doesn't count, and they can't do anything, so America is practically alone. For now, yes. I will answer the questions asked at the beginning in the summary of this video. The summary of this video will have the answers. Gentlemen, 2025 is coming to an end. It flew by. For me, it passed in a flash. Until the end of the year, you can still get my book, Capitalism 101, for free. After that, it will be sold at the same price it's selling for today on Amazon. The link is below. Also, on a separate channel, there are already more than 100 10-minute videos on amazing, interesting, and captivating topics. Volitional science is full of stories, mysteries, and historical anecdotes. Yes, it's the science of the third branch of knowledge, the relationships between individuals who possess free will and the freedom of choice. The channel is called Roadmap to Freedom. Watch the first 2 or 3 10-minute videos and I can almost guarantee you'll get hooked on them. And now back to interesting topics. The drug business, bringing underage prostitutes into the United States, and World War III. United States Marines stormed an oil tanker that belongs to Venezuela. So basically, they acted like highway robbers. Why, for what reason, on what grounds? But first, what exactly happened?
But we also have some news. Attorney General Pam Bondi released a video of the operation in Darien, where you can see United States forces descending onto a vessel from a helicopter and landing on the deck with their weapons ready. At the White House, Trump said the seizure was fully justified.
President Trump said that we were more than entitled to stop and seize that tanker.
Why is that so? Good morning, Bill and Dano. Overnight, Venezuelan leaders responded to the seizure of the crude oil tanker. They accused the United States of theft and President Trump of blatantly trying to seize all the country's oil resources. Here's the Minister of Internal Affairs. Listen.
Juan Guaido, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, strongly condemns and rejects what is in
theft and an act of international piracy, publicly declared by the President of the United States.
That is, Venezuela claims that this was a pirate seizure. Well, a seizure of oil, of course, not a ship. And that it is explained only by Trump's desire to seize all the oil in their country. So basically, they just changed things, handed over the property. As the Russians used to say, they want to take our resources away from us. By the way, what will happen to the oil on the tanker? What's going to happen? We'll dump it into the sea, but it's unlikely the Americans are so careless with property. They won't dump it into the sea. We'll leave it.
Perhaps.
Track where it's headed. Which port? Follow the tanker. You're the newcomer.
Just follow the tanker.
We'll probably hold course.
The Attorney General posted the seizure video on social media and reported it to the FBI. The Department of Homeland Security and United States Coast Guard conducted the operation with military support.
Trump's response was brief. we'll take it for ourselves. As for what happens next, I don't know how the rest of the world will react. Of course, we don't really care about that, but the United States Senate might make a fuss if we don't have a clear justification for suddenly deciding to take someone else's oil. By the way, whose oil is it?
It turned out that the United States issued a warrant for this tanker, suspecting that it was used to transport illegal oil from Venezuela and Iran in support of foreign terrorist groups.
Yeah, that's what it's about. We warned about this tanker. The oil was going to Iran for processing. So, by the way, sometimes it happens it's registered as going to Cuba, but in reality it's going to some other places. So it's strange that it's not from Iran, but to Iran, right? And then it goes there. And then oil products are processed in Iran. Gasoline, kerosene are sold as if it's already Venezuelan oil, mostly to China, and the profit from processing goes into Iran's pocket. That's the point. That's how it is, as Comrade Gorbachev used to say. Where's the catch? And now let's listen to the FBI Director, Kasha Patel.
The tanker has been used in recent years in an illegal shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations. This administration will keep working day and night to suppress FTOs and block their resources. What's the main goal? How do you view it, Rebecca? This is a clear example of Venezuela's ties to other authoritarian powers like Iran. I mean, there is an agreement signed between the Iranians and the Venezuelans in 2022 to help each other. And as you said, Bill, Venezuela wants to bypass United States sanctions against Iranian oil, so it uses barter, exporting heavy oil by tankers to Iran. Iran refines it and then exports it to China, since China needs refined oil. So there is a network of authoritarian countries that are increasingly cooperating to harm the United States. And in my opinion, the Trump administration was absolutely right to seize the tanker, which had been under sanctions for several years. You wait.
Do you expect this to happen again?
Rebecca. I will, as long as Venezuelans are foolish enough to keep trying to sneak past us. With our strong naval and Coast Guard presence in the region to stop it, of course, General Kane. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff stated that over the weekend, we can expect more fighting in our hemisphere. The Trump administration has lost patience with this illegal activity happening right under our noses.
Rebecca mentioned General Kane, who was invited by 3 presidents to become Secretary of Defense in their administrations, and he refused 3 times. He's an advisor to Trump, kind of like an outside consultant. They reach out to him when needed, and he knows everything the president's inner circle knows. He gets sent all the information, so to speak. If he says there will be a military operation soon, then, well, most likely it means it's being planned. Whether it will actually happen or not, we don't know, but it's being planned. If he says they're going to seize ships, then, well, it means they're planning to seize ships. That's just how it is.
Could this mean that special forces will go in at night during the holiday? Can you imagine that?
We might hear about this, Bill. Also remember, narco-terrorism is involved. And the reason why this is so important is that narco-terrorists are working hand in hand with the Venezuelan regime, providing it with funding, support, and cooperation. The Venezuelan regime gives narco-terrorists the cover and help they need, as reported by Trump administration officials. But the geopolitical picture here is much broader, and I think we should expect that. If the Venezuelans attempt to break away, there will be ongoing repression, as seen with the tanker example.
What is the ultimate goal of the United States? Let's turn to the Trump Doctrine, which was just published in our hemisphere. We want peace, stability, fair trade, competition, security, and prosperity. What does it mean in practice? Well, to put it in practical terms, that's where the real issue lies. So we don't want coups, we don't want revolutions, we don't want drug trafficking. That means we will destroy the cartels again. We will destroy the cartels. We don't want Chinese and Russian missiles located near us. Well, that's a normal thing not to want, right? Yeah? So we will put pressure on those who have relations with China and Russia. while at the same time stopping putting pressure on China and Russia themselves. And if they stop interfering in our backyard, but on the other hand, we will stop putting pressure on them if they mind their own business, which we no longer consider ours. We used to treat the whole planet as our backyard for no reason, but now we don't. We will create a forum, which I would call Yalta 2, well, maybe 3, maybe 4, I don't know how many there were. But Yalta, yes. Like China, Russia, the United States of America, India, Turkey, and Japan, aiming to replace the United Nations de facto. And we will decide who owns what, who doesn't, who does, and who influences what. Where are the spheres of influence, and how to solve planetary and regional problems without starting regional wars, which can easily escalate into global conflicts, Trump says should be determined through negotiations by reaching compromises, taking into account the interests of the parties involved. So, did he consider war, for example, with Iran as a continuation of foreign policy? If you couldn't get what you wanted through negotiations, well, with bribes, I don't know, with promises, then go and take it by force. Trump believes that war should be completely ruled out as a means of negotiation. Pressure with threats? Yes, that's fine. Especially with the threat of precise, painful strikes and immediate cessation once the desired result is achieved.
Our army is great. 25% of our warships are currently in the Caribbean Sea. So, Rebecca, what is the situation in your opinion?
Obviously, the Trump administration understands that Maduro must go. Maduro is just a puppet of other authoritarian powers that are establishing themselves in our hemisphere. That's why the Trump administration wants Maduro out. He wants
pressure Maduro's circle to make him resign.
They want a United States-friendly regime installed, which is supposedly what the Venezuelan people want. That's exactly how they voted time and time again. So we're trying. The United States is trying to oust him without resorting to extreme measures like strikes on Venezuela or any other military option that's risky for Americans. But obviously, that's the ultimate goal of the Trump administration.
I want to insert a third clip, guys. Play it. The presidents were asked about the Colombian leader in South America.
Look, didn't you think about talking to the president of Colombia, who was called a drug lord?
No, to be honest, I didn't really think much about him. He was pretty hostile toward the United States, and I didn't pay much attention to him. He'll have big problems if he doesn't wise up.
Colombia produces a lot of drugs. They have cocaine factories that, as you know, make cocaine and sell it directly to the United States. So he'd better think twice or he's next.
About the president of Colombia, Trump just said that he needs to wise up or he'll be next, which we're going to clean up. Well, we call it liberating Colombia. By the way, did you notice that nobody says anything about Cuba? Do you know why? Because they don't bring us anything. They only harm their own citizens, so it's not our business. Don't touch me and I won't touch you. I think the world will soon understand this philosophy, and this philosophy, or rather the understanding of this philosophy, will start to seriously reshape the world.
Well, again, it's this network of communist states that were terrible for their countries, since they were so terrible for their countries. We see a flow of migrants to the United States. So if you want to control our border, to stop the flow of migrants, you need greater stability in your hemisphere. And moreover, we don't want these countries to contribute to drug trafficking, obviously, in the United States. So all these countries that really felt safe no longer have that, and they should be warned. If we're going to go after Maduro in Venezuela, of course, we're going to go after these other regimes as well. The opposition leader, Maria Machado, who fled Venezuela, is a pro-democracy advocate. That's another notable point. Bill, she's pro-American and now safe outside Venezuela.
So if you're sending us drugs, if masses of refugees are coming to us from you, it becomes our business, our problem, and our concern. Once again, This is a completely new approach to international politics. Not ideology, not your internal affairs, not your problems, not slavery, freedom, not freedom, but the influence on... That's what ours is about. As I said, that's our front yard, our garden, and our sphere of influence. And this becomes the new measure of relationships. We don't interfere in other people's business until it becomes our own. Why aren't we very happy when caravans of people from the third world come to us, settle together, speak their own language, see the United States as a cash cow, and consider their homeland to still be their homeland? They consider the country they fled from as their homeland. That's because things are bad there, not because of the country that took them in.
Fraud, fraud, and more fraud. It seems like every day they uncover new thefts of taxpayer money in my home state of Minnesota.
And who is right at the center of all this? The self-proclaimed liar and failed governor and vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. My state is now experiencing
all the pettiness of this. The pettiness of this administration has plundered the country.
I have to hold myself back because he gets on my nerves. On Thanksgiving. In the evening, I was calmly playing Yahtzee with the other kids.
A scam, and in passing, he seriously calls me the R word. Come on.
Trump called the governor of Minnesota an idiot, so honestly, I think that's actually a compliment to the governor.
She's from a country that's considered the worst country in the world. They have no army, no parliament, not even knowing what it means, and no police force. They have nothing. They control themselves. They constantly watch each other.
The president is strict.
I love her, and she comes to our country and always complains. The Constitution allows me to do this. We need to kick her out. She married her brother to get in, right? Her brother. They're dealing with it now, by the way. It's ongoing.
Can you imagine if Donald Trump married his own sister? Wonderful.
150,000 Somalis stole $8 billion from the United States. Well, not all of them, of course, were stealing, and maybe they stole even more. That's just what we know so far. This is one of the results of the wave of migrants from third countries who settle all together. We don't really like this, just so it's clear. Yeah, maybe you thought we really liked having $8 billion stolen from us, but we don't really like it. So let's try to answer the questions we asked at the beginning. What's next? Who is the next Venezuela? Next, maybe another tanker. Maybe next are bombings of warehouses, factories, drug dealers, then explosions at military bases and bribing generals to get rid of Maduro. And after that, maybe Colombia, maybe Nicaragua. Are we getting ourselves into another Vietnam or Afghanistan? I hope not. Trump likes to act surgically. As soon as the Nobel Peace Prize laureate takes the seat of the president of Venezuela, we will bring back to the country 1 million Venezuelans who came running to us, and 6 million who fled to Peru and Colombia. All of them will return home. On the way, we will blow up and burn everything that has anything to do with drug trafficking. What will happen to the oil? Well, the oil that's on this tanker, yes, that small stuff, we've already figured it out. We'll take it for ourselves and maybe deposit the payment into the account of the new Venezuelan government. And finally, the sponsors of Venezuela, China, and Russia have remained silent until now. But as they say, after our friendly visit to the tanker, Putin made a statement.
Venezuela condemned the seizure of its tankers as international piracy and blatant theft. We learned that the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, in a phone conversation with Nicolas Maduro, expressed solidarity with the Venezuelan people. Some Democratic lawmakers are expressing concern. Senator Rand Paul says this looks a lot like the beginning of a war for Moscow.
This poses a direct threat to its influence. The official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, warns that Washington is reviving the Theodore Roosevelt Doctrine, giving itself the right to intervene in the affairs of Latin American countries under the guise of stabilization. Russia is openly stating that the Pentagon is escalating pressure on Venezuela, accusing the United States of creating conditions for conflict with the aim of overthrowing President Nicolas Maduro. Moscow warns that the result will destabilize the entire Western Hemisphere. Russia says that this confrontation is about more than just Venezuela. It's about preventing the United States from regaining hegemonic dominance in the region. For a long time in the region, the authorities in the major region, who can bring power to the major region, are already there and can bring power to the major region.
The authorities that should. After learning that Maduro was ready to flee, Putin sent special forces there, but not to stop the Americans, rather to prevent Maduro from escaping. Now Maduro will be guarded by Russian enforcers. That means making sure his own people don't get to him there, and that El Presidente doesn't think about running away. A Russian military transport plane landed in the center of Venezuela. The secret flight of the Il-76 dropped off troops and weapons in Caracas. Putin is showing that military and political ties with Maduro continue despite the American presence in the Caribbean. A squad of Wagner fighters was on board the giant plane. Satellite surveillance reported that the plane took off from Moscow and made several stops, including Armenia, Algeria, Morocco, Senegal, and Mauritania. Such a complicated flight was made to avoid possible inspections by Western transit countries. The Il-76 can carry 200 servicemen and 50 tons of cargo. This is not the first flight of such Russian planes to Caracas. This is in addition to what was delivered earlier. From Moscow's point of view, Venezuela is another card in the negotiations with the United States about Ukraine and about the influence of major countries in their own regions. The United States has just announced that it will not interfere in the affairs of the other hemisphere, but in its own hemisphere it will make all countries line up and stand at attention. Whoever enters into an unequal alliance will be rewarded, and whoever doesn't will be punished. Well, that's a hint from Trump. First crushed financially and then, if necessary, by other possible means. There will be peace, order, prosperity, and a complete absence of drug dealers in Latin America and the Caribbean. If someone doesn't like it, they can jump out of the plane, while it's in flight, of course, or feed themselves to the sharks. The Kremlin heard what I said, but of course it hasn't fully believed in its luck yet. The United States is no longer acting as the world's policeman. The United States will not interfere in Russian and Chinese affairs if our rivals for leadership and influence do not interfere in ours. The same applies to Turkey, and the same applies to all other countries. So if it's our business, our own backyard, then for everyone else, so business, so our business, so our affairs, British Bimji, but the ball is out. But this, even if it's a secret, it doesn't really matter. There's just a 38 trillion debt and over 20 million illegals in the country. We're no longer the king of the beasts, ladies and gentlemen, but the king of the Western Hemisphere forest. And there we'll talk. That's what's happening with us, gentlemen. I'm telling you the picture as I see it. It's up to you to decide how you feel about this picture. Goodbye, and until we meet again.